dabbles in futurism. Imagining the demands of tomorrow. In each subject and grade, we establish benchmarks to be measured by observation, testing, and performance, sprinkled with human compassion. In the field of education, we are crossing a threshold toward a revolution in teaching and learning. How we do business is destined to change through the emergence of distant resources and alternative educational components. In order to move ahead, we must ask ourselves the following questions. What have we learned about teaching and learning? What can be imagined as the ideal learning environment? What needs to be changed to meet the needs of the new millennium? Is this new structure to be enriched or re-engineered? To meet this challenge, the Michigan Department of Education has instituted a series of funding opportunities through the Technology Literacy Challenge Fund. Partnerships at the local, regional, and state level are encouraged to develop and demonstrate ways in which technology supports teaching and learning. The concept of technology means many things to many people. However, in the field of education, it's the integration of tools and applied processes that define our mission in which we all have a stake. By accepting this mission, we will together restructure the notions of learning and create a world where teaching and learning are as natural as any other functions in life. Through a grant from the Technology Literacy Challenge Fund, Best Practices of Technology Integration has developed resources to assist teachers throughout the state by providing examples of best practices lesson plans and curriculum alignment. As partners in this project, regional educational media centers facilitate local training workshops and distribute CD-ROMs that contain a process for evolution of a lesson plan. When we as mentors, teachers, and administrators accept the challenge of technology integration, how do we respond? With a series of tips, TIPS, Technology Integrated Planning Steps.
Technology Integrated Planning Steps. Sounds good. However, what technology are we talking about? And more importantly, how do we know when it is integrated? How can we tell when technology integration is successful? I'm Anita, a high school English teacher, and the next few minutes, I, along with two of my colleagues, will introduce concepts behind some of the technology integrated planning steps, or TIPS. We'll look at classroom practice as it relates to the Michigan Curriculum Framework, assessment of students and lessons, and oh yes, technology integration. As a teacher with the Flint Community Schools, I have many students enrolled in a traditional English language arts course, but I also instruct students through our distance learning network, linking 24 different school districts. The network, implemented and supported by the Genesee Intermediate School District, known as GenNet, connects classrooms across the entire county. I have also been involved with the Best Practices statewide project for more than 2 years. As we all know, when we find ourselves involved in projects such as these, terms like technology integration and best practices are certainly hot, but we struggle for the clear definition and meaningful implementation. Technology, that which supports learning activities both in and out of the classroom, may be defined as anything you can plug in, runs on batteries, retrieves information from connected wires, or through the air, anything that amplifies the way in which we look at the world around us or gather knowledge, anything that allows us to do it better than we did before. When you are ready to jump into the wired world, ask yourself these questions regarding the use of technology. What technology do you have? Use what your school has available. Don't worry if it's not the latest version, the fastest processor, or the brand name that the other school district is using. The most important thing is to leverage resources available to you. Identifying technologies is an important first step. What does the technology do? Understand the function. Don't necessarily memorize required steps. Even if you have an old word processor, help students understand concepts that translate to similar technologies. All word processors can copy, cut, paste, justify left, right, and center, the buttons may be different. However, the results will be the same. Can students make a choice of technologies? Selection of the right tool is part of learning. For instance, students can use PowerPoint, HyperStudio, or a web page design program, and all will produce nonlinear multimedia reports with hyperlinks. The key to evaluating student performance is the process used to select, access, evaluate, and present the information. Do you really have to use technology? It's important to know when not to use technology. Sometimes the old way still works better. Rearranging slides on a light table or constructing a papier-mâché model may be better than taking 3 days to figure out how the latest 3D animator works, especially when 24 hours are required to render the outcome, and the file is too large to use on any other computer. Assessment questions should be used to determine if technology has helped the lesson. The Michigan Curriculum Framework outlines 6 technology standards that you should consult when you infuse technology into your lessons. Standard 1, using and transferring, states all students will use and transfer technological knowledge and skills for life roles. Standard 2, using information technology, states all students will use technologies to input, retrieve, organize, manipulate, evaluate, and communicate information. Standard 3, applying appropriate technologies, states students will apply appropriate technologies to critical thinking, creative expression, and decision-making skills. Standard 4, employing a systematic approach, states that all students will apply a systematic approach to technological solutions by using resources and processes to create, maintain, and improve products, systems, and environments. Standard 5, applying standards, states that students will apply ethical and legal standards in planning, using, and evaluating technology. Standard 6, evaluating and forecasting, states that students will evaluate the societal and environmental impacts of technology and forecast alternative uses and possible consequences to make informed civic, social, and economic decisions. Will every one of these standards be applicable to every lesson we teach? Of course not. Do we need to ensure that when we do implement technology, we do so in a consistent manner? Absolutely. And that's what the technology standards and benchmarks provide. Let's visit a colleague as he describes an application of these standards in a not-so-typical classroom situation.
Hello, my name is Martin, and as a teacher working with middle and high school students, I'll give you a few ideas on how the technology standards and benchmarks really can influence classroom practice. In my classroom, I teach dramatic literature. Combining technology and the goals of the Michigan Curriculum Framework can happen just as easily as in any subject where the use of technology is more obvious. Whether my goal is to increase reading comprehension or to develop analytical thinking as it pertains to character analysis and motivation, integrating and planning technology in a lesson can be more than another rake through the doldrums of literature for today's student. Studying the history of costuming in a technical theater class can have brand new meaning for students in a distance learning classroom where the use of technology is optimal. When studying what people wore in the classical Greek era, a time when the culture and basic clothing for men and women were so far removed from what we are used to today, how do you incorporate technology into the lesson in order to prompt students to discover even more about Greek costume? With learning objectives already in place, I reviewed the 6 technology content standards and benchmarks and was pleased to find most everything we have been doing fits. I was able to see a natural progression of the standards. You need to know what technology is available and how to use it before you can expect to apply it appropriately or employ it in a systemic approach. In my class, it went something like this. Students were divided into pairs and asked to prepare a costume design presentation of their own. In our distance learning classrooms, We are fortunate to have immediate access to CD players, tape recorders, a VCR, video camera, an overhead document camera, not to mention computers, access to the internet, and of course, other classrooms on the distance learning system. Since the students are required to demonstrate proper care of the distance learning system and its components, one of the specific technology benchmarks is met, which is part of the Using and Transferring Standard. To visualize their research, I asked the students to use simple bathroom tissue, toilet paper, as fabric to create garments that resembled what was worn in ancient Greece. In the distance learning classroom, students at one school created clothing worn by Greek slaves, while students at another site dressed classical Greek soldiers for battle. Prior to their presentations, students gathered information from internet sites devoted to period clothing. They also chose ancient classical music to be played in the background, while the students presented costume displays created on each other. These are just a few of the ways students can use information technologies and apply appropriate technologies in their projects. For this presentation, students were asked to consider possible uses for any or all of technologies available. Not all technologies were appropriate. For instance, my students learned that PowerPoint can be a great attention getter, but doesn't allow for optimal interaction between presenters and audience. Let's not forget about applying standards, which cannot be ignored in planning any lesson or project. Students need to be reminded that they are the authors and creators of their work. When using someone else's music or pictures, they need to be certain the materials are in the public domain or request permission to use these items in their project. For example, choosing styles of Greek chitons, robes, and sashes from 3 different sources and presenting them in a new light is more authentic than simply downloading an entire Greek costume from Medea or Oedipus from a professional costume designer's website. As the students and I both learned, integrating technology may not always be convenient, but it does allow for increased enthusiasm for learning and student achievement. What could be more relevant than giving students the opportunity to improve technology skills they use every day in the 21st century while researching and creating garments worn 2 millenniums ago? As we enable our students to develop the skills they will need for the future, what could be more timely than having technology standards and benchmarks to assist us in developing our lessons?
Martin is never at a loss for a creative solution. By all indications, the learning experience was successful. But how do we judge student understanding of the technology used? There are resources to help us evaluate technology use and to assist us in developing assessment strategies for many of the benchmarks contained in the technology standards. What are the resources? One is the book, Information Power, Building Partnerships for Learning. In this book, the American Association of School Librarians and the Association for Education Communications and Technology propose 9 information literacy standards for student learning. Most school libraries will have a copy. Check it out today. However, while you're waiting for the library to open, here is a hint as to what you will find. The 9 information literacy standards are grouped into 3 categories. First, information literacy highlights and gives examples of ways students successfully access, evaluate, and use information accurately and creatively. Second, independent learning defines a student who pursues information, appreciates literature and other creative expressions of information, and strives for excellence in information seeking and knowledge generation. Third, social responsibility emphasizes the importance of information to a democratic society, outlines ethical behavior in regard to information and information technology while challenging group participation and generation of information. To help address each of the standards, the book contains a series of indicators that may be used by the classroom teacher to assess student mastery of particular benchmarks within the curriculum framework. Now let's visit another colleague to see how the indicators have helped him with a special classroom project.
Hi, my name is Rick, and as a 4th grade teacher, I'm excited to share with you an ongoing project that my students are involved in now. Also for your consideration are examples of ways in which information literacy standards for student learning can serve as a guide for assessment of student learning and the lesson itself. The Truesdale Creek Project gives the fourth graders of Field Elementary School daily practice using technology at the basic and proficient level, while at the same time laying the groundwork for exemplary level development. 3 of the standards for information literacy are specifically relevant as students access, evaluate, and use collected information. First, students learn atmospheric protocols from the GLOBE network, which stands for Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. Then, teams of students begin making daily observations and measurements at our Truesdale Creek site. They observe the conditions of the creek, such as water color, odor, depth, and the presence or absence of debris. Then, they measure the minimum and maximum air temperature, the current temperature, as well as precipitation. Finally, they note the cloud type and cloud cover. After recording this data on a clipboard while on site, the students post the data on our Media Center's bulletin board. Back in the classroom, via the internet, the students log on to the NOAA website in Washington, D.C., sponsors of the GLOBE program. They upload their data daily on our own school's GLOBE webpage. The students print out and deliver the creek data to our media specialist, who in turn publishes the data on our school-wide television channel that delivers announcements to each classroom. Then each Friday, the students present a school-wide televised report called the Truesdale Creek Report, which summarizes the weekly weather and creek data. This overview gives each classroom teacher the opportunity to configure the creek data to specific classroom lessons such as math, scientific writing, and science. Being able to tell if a student is at basic, proficient, or exemplary stages in this process will help shape our expectations and assessment of those students' achievement and shape the lessons we design for them. With each information literacy standard included in the book Information Power, there are many indicators to assist in this task. As students set out to gather and access data, indicators especially helpful are first, the recognized need for information. The student who is information literate accesses information efficiently and effectively. Second, the student must realize that accurate and comprehensive information is the basis for intelligent decision-making, something that becomes more apparent as students post information to the collective website. At the basic level of proficiency, students must be capable of selecting examples of accurate and inaccurate information. Some students have already become proficient, meaning they can explain the difference between accurate and inaccurate information needed for a complete decision-making process. The exemplary level of understanding will come in the future as our students are asked to judge the quality of decisions in terms of information on which they are based. How does this relate to the Michigan Curriculum Framework? The project as a whole answers the expectations as outlined in the science standards. Our students use this scientific data to understand this wetland habitat, which helps guide their decisions concerning their actions. Our students construct new scientific knowledge because their observations lead them to ask questions about the variables which they observe at the creek. Our students reflect on their own knowledge gained from observing, collecting, reporting, and presenting this scientific data. They demonstrate an appreciation for this habitat and can explain how the creek contributes to the quality of their community. When we apply the technology standards to this very same project, students are working through most of the benchmarks as outlined in Standard 2. All students will use technologies to input, retrieve, organize, manipulate, evaluate, and communicate information. Which brings us back to the question of assessment. How do we know when our students are successful? To that end, the book Information Power with examples of basic, proficient, and exemplary behaviors is a valuable resource that will assist you in judging the quality of your lesson as well as student performance. A useful resource to have at your side as we prepare our students in this information age.
Thanks, Rick. We certainly have used a lot of terms and referenced multiple documents. It's great to see an actual application in progress. But are you wondering, what is the common factor? How do all these items connect? When information and technology come together, levels of proficiency introduced under the 9 information literacy standards may be generalized and combined with the framework to provide an effective set of tips to consider during lesson development. These particular tips are not meant to be all-encompassing, but do represent a quick checklist or reference. These tips set the stage for effective assessment of specific benchmarks included in the Michigan Curriculum Framework. The common thread found between the book, Information Power, and the curriculum framework may be presented as 3 categories: process steps, quality of information, and technology choices. First, there are the process steps. With a basic level of understanding, a student is aware of and can retrace or recreate a series of steps in order to develop a process, product, or solution. With a proficient level of understanding, a student will assess each step. With an exemplary level of understanding, a student makes changes in process or product based on self-assessment or feedback from others. The second tips category is quality of information. Accuracy and source recognition is at the heart of information literacy skills. With a basic level of understanding, a student is capable of selecting examples of accurate and inaccurate information. With a proficient level of understanding, a student will be able to explain the differences between accurate and inaccurate information with knowledge of the source from which it came. An exemplary level of understanding is demonstrated when a student can judge the quality of information in terms of accuracy and completeness. In addition, the student will cite the information source and obtain permission to use material as necessary. The third tips category, technology choices, is all about which technology is used and its impact on process or product. A basic level of understanding is evidenced when a student can name a variety of technologies. In addition, the student can name various formats within each technology and also describe the implications of its use. A student with a proficient level of understanding will select an appropriate technology and format based on the information to be conveyed and the nature of the assignment. An exemplary level of understanding is achieved when a student can justify or defend his or her choice of technology and can realize any future implications. In my own classes, infusing technology into my lesson plans has stimulated student creativity and learning. It has even helped make poetry fun for high school students. Students achieve levels of accomplishment that more than satisfy the goals of the Michigan curriculum standards and benchmarks. In my classes, technology has helped me to do what I have not been able to do before. I hope the tips presented here and our explanation of the terms and standards associated with the Michigan Curriculum Framework and information literacy for student learning have been helpful. On behalf of our statewide partnership, thank you for spending this time with us. We all look forward to hearing from you about your own best practices.